It's The List and your boy with Jimmy Van and Sean Ross Sapp.
All right, you guys are live.
Fucking Jesus. Like, I'm not... another cold opening. This is what I deal with.
How you doing?
So here we are. What's up, you guys? It's Sean Ross Sapp. You know, I'm managing editor of Fightful.com. And it was hard to land this one. It was hard to make this interview happen.
This would be a hard one to land, that's for sure.
The Rock is here on The List and your boy, number 44.
So, I'm going to tell you something, Sean.
You are not drinking through that.
I'm pretending.
Oh, okay.
You got to roll with me on this. I don't know how good my audio is through this, so I might not keep it on very long. But I actually made an attempt to get Jason Sensation. And Jason Sensation, if you hear this, or if anybody knows him that hears this, tell that fucker to like get back to me, because the guy's fallen off the planet, Sean. Jason Sensation, you remember him, right?
I remember him.
So he's kind of fallen off the planet a little bit. I heard he's gone through some rough times, whatever. I tried reaching out to him through social media. I tried Facebook. I wanted him to come in. I was going to put this mask on, have him standing off to the side, have him imitate The Rock. That's what I was going to do. And he didn't get back to me, man.
Well, he's probably still a little nervous. I mean, you're The Rock, and he impersonated the Nation like 20-some years ago. He probably thinks he still has heat with you.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. The Rock's had a good run, so I forgive.
Dropping F-bombs. I always get on Anna about it, trying to get us demonetized. But it's your money, Jimmy, so...
Oh, I don't care. But,
like, it's starting to border, like, the mouth will move on this thing a little bit.
Oh, does it?
Yes, very, very little.
So, I realized that we're doing this on November 1st.
Somebody says, oh shit, it's Joe Rogan.
You think so?
They look alike. The mask looks a lot like Joe Rogan.
Really? Think so?
Just scream, ow! Into the mic.
I guess
like
that's what I was going
knocked
for.
Out.
That's what I was going for. So even though we're doing this on Wednesday, November 1st, the day after Halloween, it's still close enough. I thought doing it last week was too early.
Yeah.
And I went out of my way to look up some pro wrestling related Halloween stuff. I found this Rock mask. I think it looks decent, don't you think?
Yeah.
Not bad, right?
Did you see my costume last night?
I saw one night you were Spawn. I
was Spawn Ross Sapp.
That's
and then
right.
Last night, I was the several $1,000 man. So, you know, and of course Jeff and Anna on the SmackDown Post Show trolled me by dressing up as characters, Uma Thurman and John Travolta from Pulp Fiction.
There you go. There you go. Well, I'm not going to keep it on long because I feel like my audio is probably muffled. Is that true?
Yes,
Nigel?
it is.
Okay. So
we should have at least built to this. Nigel should have pinned you to beat you in this mask versus hair match.
I was told I couldn't say anything.
Damn.
yeah, Nigel was aware of this, but he was told to keep his mouth shut. So that's why nothing was said.
I have been known to snoop out a secret or two.
Yeah, I've been a lot better at hiding them.
You have been.
So, but this is, I think it's not bad, right? So I'll keep it around for usage for other stuff sometime. Sean, I got to tell you, man.
Yeah.
So I come from a small town in southeastern Ontario in Canada.
Sure.
And it's a small kind of, white bread country town, lots of farmland, whatnot. I took my kid out trick-or-treating in Toronto last night, Halloween night. I feel like as a kid I got the shaft.
Really?
Because I might be outdating myself, because I don't know if you dealt with this. Nigel, I don't know if you ever dealt with this. They make these little rock-hard Halloween caramels. Did you ever deal with that, Sean?
Yeah.
And they cost like a half a penny each, and they're wrapped in a Halloween theme wrapper, right?
Yep.
Like black and the orange.
Yeah.
Those peanut butter kisses.
The little shit ones, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
So when I was a kid, that's what I would get, is stuff like that, right? And then you'd be lucky if you got a few miniature chocolate bars or whatever. My kid last night, now granted, we're in a nice area of Toronto called Forest Hill, and that probably makes a difference. But my kid last night, within 40 minutes, had her bucket filled to the brim with things like full-size chocolate bars.
People care now. They don't want to be the uncool people. There was somebody, we were handing out the fun size Skittles and Starburst, the 2 little Starbursts. A kid walks up and I see a package of Starbursts, like leaning, like out of his bucket. It wouldn't fit in the bucket. It was so big. And then on the end it said share size, and I was like, "What? Who is the family that's doing that?" But I have a theory. I think they really just bought like 4 of them, and they were like, "Tell your friends," and then they shut the door and went in for the night.
So, because it's that big of a deal to have that kind of look?
Nobody wants to be the family that gives out the peanut butter kisses. My wife revealed to me that she liked those, and I was disgusted.
You know what?
Like, this is the type of stuff that would have caused me to draw up a prenup.
Really?
Yes.
See, I did drop a prenup because I'm a smart thinker, Sean. Should have done the same thing. But I do want to say this. My personal highlight, one of my personal highlights from Halloween this year, and people in Canada might be familiar with this reference. Nigel won't be, but a lot of people in Canada might be. My neighbor, as it turned out, is a TSN hockey analyst. And I didn't know. And when I was trick-or-treating, this guy was out tending to his jack-o'-lanterns, because one of them broke. He's tending to his jack-o'-lanterns. I complimented him on another one. He turned and looked at me to say thanks, and it was a TSN hockey analyst. So I thought that was kind of cool. I had no idea that he was my neighbor.
I have a neighbor. Well, he died, but he was a Major League Baseball All-Star. Hot diggity darn.
That's cool, but he's dead, so who cares? So,
jeez, Jimmy.
I said that to get a reaction. That's what I said, to get a reaction. So, getting to wrestling news, I want to start by talking about live audio wrestling. Now, let me tell you something, Sean. This whole Anthem Impact Wrestling thing, all right? Yeah. This is the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to wrestling reporting, all right? And I realize that every week we tend to talk about the whole Anthem Impact thing, and that's because every week something happens. And what happened on Monday, personally, this I guess is one of the ones that has hit me the hardest personally, is what happened. And I'm going to read the direct quote. This was posted October 30th on the Live Audio Wrestling Twitter. It said, effective immediately, the law is being placed on a short hiatus. We will be relaunched with a new format in the coming weeks. Stay tuned. Then they announced that John Pollock and Jason Agnew had been let go by the Fight Network. And of course, the Fight Network, their parent company is Anthem Entertainment. And so it's quite clear that this was a budget-cutting measure. And it's quite clear that Impact is continuing to bleed Anthem dry, and Anthem has no choice now but to make these cuts. They cut Robin Black a few months ago. He's an MMA.
Shocking move.
Yeah, and he was an MMA analyst on the Fight Network. They cut him. Now they just cut John Pollock and Jason Agnew. The law has a special place with me because 20 years ago when I first moved to Toronto, I moved to Toronto in 98. When I first moved to Toronto, the first guys that I ever met, quote-unquote, in the wrestling business were the original Law hosts, Jeff Merrick, Chris Tidwell, and Donnie Abreu. And I actually met Jason Agnew a few times through Jeff Merrick back in the day, because Jason Agnew was on the show longer than John Pollock was. And another host who I believe was not let go, Dan Lavransky. I met him several times as well through the original hosts. So I thought it was very unfortunate, a show that's been around for 20 years and a show that I have a personal connection to, is essentially, I know that they say on hiatus.
Gutted. It's gutted.
Yeah, because clearly they're going to bring it back with lesser talent or less
or
price
as an
talent.
Impact fluff show or
something like that. I know Dave Meltzer, who was on the show every week. Dave Meltzer flat out used the word.
Loved his segment.
No, but he flat out used the word canceled. He flat out said it was canceled. But they say short hiatus. I will say that I have spoken to both John Pollock and Jason Agnew this week to kind of see how things are going and all that. And they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
They got some plans in the works and they'll be okay. But it's just unfortunate. Again, I actually called it on Twitter Anthem's acquisition of Impact this week. I called it arguably the worst business decision, wrestling-related business decision of the last 15 years. I think you can go back even deeper and say it's one of the worst wrestling-related business decisions of all time. And now it's starting to affect their core business because the Fight
They're
Network...
making Billy Corgan look like the savviest person in the universe right now. Like, well, he's like, I'm seeing some of the stuff they're putting out with NWA. I don't know if you've seen it. It's real good.
Yeah, but
it's
Billy Corgan wanted to buy Impact too.
He did. He did.
And the only reason he didn't is because he was kind of pushed out. That's the only reason he didn't, right?
But I mean, I don't think it wouldn't have cost a John Pollock his job. I reached out to John Pollock, and he said that he was weighing some things and he was decompressing. It seemed like he was, and I'm sure the support that he got in reaction to that was great. He's really, really good. With me doing this kind of job, I don't have a lot of time to listen to a lot of people's stuff. I'll listen to podcasts here and there. Rogan, Schaub, Michael Rappaport, Bruce Pritchard. The only other real thing that I'll listen to is occasionally when I see something from The Law pop up on my feed, on my subscription feed. I really like what they do there. I liked what Robin Black did there, not on The Law, but you know, it's a shock to me when such good reporters are cut, and you know, people can say, well, it doesn't have anything to do. It's a cost-cutting measure. Well, why are they cutting costs?
Oh, it's absolutely because of Impact Wrestling.
Cutting costs.
Absolutely. I mean, clearly they're gonna try to spin it because guaranteed. I'm telling you right now. And another guy that works for us, James Lynch. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I don't care. He told me that he used to work at the Fight Network and that they were notorious for being shitty payers in terms of not that they'd pay late, but that it'd be low salary working for the Fight Network, right? So they already kind of had that reputation, but the shitty thing about this now is that I guarantee you that the guys that are still left at the Fight Network are walking on eggshells right now because they're thinking if they cut the Law that's been around for 20 years and was on AM radio in Toronto and everything, then am I next?
And Robin Black, known as one of the best breakdown guys in the game on the MMA side.
Yeah.
Like,
it's unfortunate.
We had him on the Fightful podcasts occasionally whenever he got cut. He's really good, a really great person. Like, Pollock and Black especially, just a couple of personalities, like you want those guys. Like they're real good at what they do. It's unfortunate. It's a shame. I hate that.
Yep, it's too bad. So we'll see what happens. But, man, that Anthem acquisition, boy, is it looking brilliant by the day here, Sean.
Yeah, when you get a guy who goes on Observer Radio and practically cries during an interview and then says that he drew the short straw.
I mean, I don't know whose decision it was to buy the company. I don't think it was Ed Nordholm. But whoever's decision it was to buy the company, unless it was ownership, they should be fired. Yeah. I mean, now you're starting to bleed your core business. Once you start to bleed your core business because of a decision you've made, that's when you got to rethink what you've been doing. Anyway,
I did want to bring up after that though what I had mentioned, those NWA clips. They announced that they're moving forward. I have trashed their 52-year-old champion Tim Storm. I still don't think it's a good idea. They put together a few videos. Man, they made him look real good, real sympathetic. Like they've done an awesome job. I never used to see the letters NWA scroll across any of my feeds. Not Twitter, not YouTube, not anything. It's showing up in my recommended videos now. People are mentioning it. So by that measure, I would say that Billy Corgan's already had more success with NWA than Anthem has had with Impact. So good for him in that regard, because I still have serious doubts about it. But you know, we often say, Jimmy, like, why wouldn't you buy a new company? Billy Corgan why wouldn't you just start a new company? Billy Corgan almost kind of did, because the NWA is so removed from everybody's minds that he just bought the name and kept what assets. And I've heard that they had to deal with some real carnies in this situation, like some people from the NWA trying to secure 6-figure office jobs.
Oh, really?
Yes, when Billy Corgan took over, and he was like, nah, get the fuck out of here. So good.
I don't know. I mean, I actually put the videos on my list today, the 10 pounds of gold videos.
Oh, did you? We'll
yeah, it's actually well, we could talk about it now since you brought it up. But I put it on my list, and I was going to say, I mean, the videos are very well produced. I'll give them credit for that. They're utilizing the tape library that they have, because they have a limited tape library. They only have, I think, the Houston tape library.
Yes.
But they're utilizing it in those videos. I think that Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, I think it looks decent. The venue looks decent, the lighting looks decent, and all that. That's fine. But as you mentioned, Tim Storm, I think, is a pretty damn questionable champion. And they announced that November 12th, he's going to defend the NWA title against Nick Aldis. That's a pretty questionable challenger.
Magnus has been Global Force champion, TNA champion. So with what's out there, I think he's fair. They got Jack Swagger, who we're going to talk to later. Not about that, but he's been on a few of those shows too.
I mean, the problem is that it's essentially an independent promotion, right? They're going to bring guys in on like a one-off booking and give them title shots, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. To
be fair to Magnus, now, is he my favorite wrestler in the world? No, but he did appear on national TV earlier this year as a world champion. He faced Alberto Del Rio or El Patron in that. So I think it's fair. It's obvious what they're doing. They're setting up Magnus as their big heel, and he's kind of taking Old Yeller out back and about ready to put a bullet in him, I think. They did a real good job with Tim Storm, because that's a guy that I had no desire to watch do anything before that, and they just did really good with him in that regard. I love those videos. Their presence has really shot up, in my opinion, because I wasn't hearing anything about him. I didn't give a damn about the NWA. I thought that, and who knows, maybe they will, but I'm like, how did you not put this title on Cody Rhodes at any point? Like, for a week. For a week, just to put it in people's heads. But we'll see where it goes. I'm actually excited to see what they do with this now.
I mean, I will say this. It kind of comes off to me like a Billy Corgan vanity project.
Sure.
But at the same time, I can understand he might have the mentality, well, I have some name recognition, so I might as well use it, right?
I know there are a few people that are putting in hard work for it. I know Dave Lagana, I think he produced the stuff.
Right.
And I think he's a one-man operation producing the stuff.
He was the voiceover too, wasn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. And he's been around. He's been in TNA. He's been in WWE, so he knows how to do a good amount of that stuff. But I am interested, and I will check out that match at the very least.
That's great. So let's move on to WWE Releases, Sean.
Oh, yeah. I did a news update video on this, which you all can see more of at our YouTube.
There you go.
This is so multi-layered and multifaceted, this story.
Yeah, and I'm going to be a little. I don't want to use the word disrespectful, but but I think that people are overreacting a bit when it comes to the star power of these people. Like, with all due respect to them. I know there's... So it was announced on October 29th. Emma, Darren Young, and Summer Rae. WWE came to terms on their release on all three of them. And Emma in particular, it seems like there's a little bit of online backlash, and there's some people that all of a sudden they're posting on social media like Emma was friggin' Charlotte Flair, reincarnated or something. And I'm just calling a spade a spade. Emma, Summer Rae, and Darren Young had not drawn a dime for the company. I'm just being honest. The only thing I will say about Emma that is a little questionable is that they had used her recently on Raw. She wrestled Asuka at TLC. She wrestled Asuka on Raw. Prior to TLC, she actually won, was it a triple threat or a four-way, in order to earn the right to face Asuka. And she actually won that match. So they did use her a little bit prior to this release, but there was no star power in those names. And again, the people that are all of a sudden putting Emma over online, like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Where the hell were you when she was on television and her segments were doing shit ratings?
Hey, your boy put her over all the time. I loved her work. I thought she was a great NXT babyface. But whatever opportunity that she had, I'll respect to Santino, because as a wrestling mind, I think a lot of Santino, that was not the right pairing to debut her with.
When she was doing this stupid shit.
It got over, man. It got over in NXT. It worked. It worked. As a heel, she went to NXT, reinvented herself, wrestled real well. Then they brought her up, and she got hurt. And she got hurt again. And they went for the Emelina thing, and she was like, guys, I don't know about this. Who knows where her career would be had she not said no to the Emelina thing. Yeah. She's had so many starts and stops that maybe WWE was just exhausted, because we are talking like failed babyface push, sent back to NXT, got fired one point because of the Walmart iPad case incident. That was a hiccup. Brought up injury, brought back injury. Emelina canned. So maybe WWE is a little exhausted. if she goes out and becomes like the first like giant female draw or something on the independent circuit, which is a very uphill battle for her, maybe they'll bring her back. I mean, they could bring her back anyway.
Oh, sure,
I think she's a real good worker. She's a real good personality. I think that she is somebody they could have done much more with. And I think that she is the biggest loss out of these three. Because
she is, but at the same time, you know, the character with the gloves and the black lipstick and the aviator sunglasses and always the cold demeanor. I just don't know how she was expecting to draw with that character. I just don't. I just don't see it.
Well, she would have to be a top heel, and they weren't interested in putting her in that.
Yeah.
I was told that WWE didn't know about these releases until they hadn't decided until the middle of the week. So.
Okay, well, she posted on Twitter on October 30th, I feel very fortunate to have the most amazing family, friends, and fans in the world. I'm excited for the future. The best is yet to come. Summer Rae posted on her Instagram, not giving up on Summer just yet. And she was actually clever how she did it. She did it in like a bikini, making like it's a summer weather type of comment, but then she capitalized the S on Summer, so I thought that was clever. And Darren Young hasn't commented publicly yet.
Darren Young will get into public speaking and probably do pretty well. He's got a friend by the name of Titus O'Neil who also could make a good career out of that, and also being the first quote-unquote openly gay, because there have been others, WWE wrestler. He's going to get a lot of speaking engagement. Summer will do something. I don't see her wrestling a ton, but I do know that a lot of wrestlers were, I don't want to say upset, but disappointed and saddened by Emma's release in particular.
And then Mr. Lio Rush, the new NXT developmental signee from, a couple months ago, he posted on Twitter on October 29th. This is after the announced Emma's release. Quote, I guess these are the things that happen when you're not truly ready for Asuka, unquote. As you can imagine, he got roasted online for this. Everybody from NXT talent to former WWE talent to current main roster talent like Bray Wyatt and Kevin Owens commented on this. A couple guys actually came into his defense. Mick Foley and William Regal defended him and said, we all make mistakes. He apologized for it. It goes back to what we've said before, man, about this whole social media thing. I realize that this day and age, WWE talent has to rely on social media in order to help build their following. And you look at The Rock, who revealed a few months ago that it was part of his strategy to utilize social media in order to kind of build up his persona as being this, presentable, people's kind of guy.
Yes.
So I realize social media is important to these people, but you got to be smarter than that, man. You've been developmental for 2 months. You're taking shots at a girl that got released.
I've had to learn a lot over the past year and a half, like dealing with people.
Yes, you have, and you're
asses.
welcome. And you're welcome for that.
Hey, you've helped me with that. You're putting yourself over, but I don't have any problem admitting that. I mean, sometimes I like to take shots at people who take shots at me. Sometimes it's not worth it.
It's because you're too sensitive, Sean.
Yeah, right. That's your it's boss time. That's your version of Michael Cole's little quips.
I love that one. Love that one.
So the Lio Rush thing was dumb, and he's 22. He's really young. He had earned this reputation on the indies too. Like, a lot of people didn't like him. A lot of people. Can he overcome it? I hope so. Cody Hall used to be in that situation where I would hear that people just didn't like his attitude, and then last year I heard that he had toned it down a lot.
Really?
So he lives and he learns. I'm sure Lio Rush is going to learn. Shout-outs to Peyton Royce for being the first one to step up and be like, hey, kid, shut up. I thought that said a lot about her. I think she's the future NXT Women's Champion, by the way. But he'll get over it. I think he has – oh, my God, the sky's the limit for that dude. And I'm saying don't put him on 205 Live. In the ring, he's your next Mysterio. I saw him at those NXT tapings, Jimmy. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. Right. And that was just the opening series between him and Velveteen Dream. Now I'll ask you, did you see EC3's tweet?
Was that after the Jeff Jarrett thing?
No, it was after Rockstar Spud.
Okay, yeah, vaguely.
He said, I guess these are the things that happen when you're not truly ready for Hornswoggle in a Mumbai street fight by Rockstar Spud. Kind of playing off of the Lio Rush tweet.
I was gonna mention Rockstar Spud as well, and Reno Scum are all gone from Impact. And apparently Rockstar Spud requested his release, apparently.
Yeah, he might end up on 205 Live by the sounds of it.
That's the rumor.
That'd be a great signing for 205 Live. He's got a ton of personality and can work in the ring.
Right.
And I think WWE is seeing that. They wanted to strap the rocket ship to Neville with 205 Live. It didn't work out the way they wanted, but it has with Enzo. They're starting to take the chains off of these guys a little bit and say, do what you got to do to get you over, and that I can appreciate, and that adding Enzo to that helps. So good for them. Reno Scum, they actually were only around for 5 days, but they filmed 7 matches. So.
And weren't they the Global Force Wrestling Tag Team Champions?
Yeah, that's why they were brought in.
Yeah, good for them.
Speaking of guys who were brought in because of Global Force Wrestling, Sonjay Dutt is competing this weekend for the X Division Championship in an X Division or Ultimate X match. I'm very excited about that, actually. I spoke to him about this, about Jeff Jarrett's departure and other things. Check it out. Now you won you're back in the X Division scene. You're back in Impact. It's been a while now. How do you feel being there, and what kind of changes have you seen since your first go around full time with the company?
Wow, big question. Changes. I guess it's ever changing here. So I started in 2003, and I left full-time in 2009, would come back here and there. So I've literally been there for every regime, from day one. So I've seen all the changes. I've seen the ups, the downs, the good, the bad. And it's no secret right now. It's a rebuilding phase. And it's basically to gain the consumer confidence back that may have been lost through past regimes and past mistakes. I think that's the number one thing that we're trying to accomplish right now.
What kind of changes do you see in the X Division? I know you have this match at Bound for Glory coming up, and it's kind of like an amalgamation of X Division past, present, and even future a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the story being played there, where you've got X Division veterans and myself and Petey. We kind of pioneered the whole thing, and then you've got the next crop with the Desmond Xavier and Garza Jr., who I think is more than just an X Division wrestler, and same goes for Matt Sydal. And I think I really do truly think the world of Trevor Lee. I think he's one of the guys that you should watch and see where he ends up in the next 5 to 10 years. I think he's so talented, and it's crazy to think that he's still in his 20s. So if you take all that into account, I think it's a bright X Division future, and it kind of goes back to when the guys, myself, Petey Williams, and Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, we all were hired. Not because we were big names or we were popular or anything like that, but we were brought in specifically because we knew how to wrestle a style that was popular on the independent.
Now, you're also working as an agent, from what I understand. Is that true?
Yes.
So how does that differ from your first go-around?
Well, that is probably the biggest change. Whereas 2003, I was 20 years old and a hungry young kid, and now I'm part of the creative team and trying to construct this show and steer it in the path that we see fit right now. And balancing the two is something that I am kind of used to. About 5 years ago is when I started transitioning into more of an office role and whatnot. So it is a struggle, I guess. It's a balancing act, but something I do enjoy.
What are your thoughts on Impact moving kind of their operations to Canada in light of Anthem? They run out of Toronto, so you're seeing a lot more of a Canadian-based thing. And I mean, I've noticed a lot more high-profile independent shows running out of Ontario as well.
I think that the Toronto, Ontario independent scene, I go back to that scene, 2006. There was a group there, UWA Hardcore, and I would be there every month and kind of branched off into other groups down there. I mean, it's always been such a hotbed for pro wrestling. And I think that being Bound for Glory, being the biggest show of the year, being the biggest pay-per-view that we put out, and the culmination of so much that's gone on over the years, I think it was a decision that made let's try to make this thing a little special and take it on the road and see what we get.
So I know that you've got a friendship with Jeff Jarrett. His situation is a little bit complicated. What do you look for the resolution to this be? I know that the name's changed back from Global Force to Impact, and Jeff's kind of taking some time right now.
Yeah, Jeff is a very good friend of mine, sort of a mentor figure and whatnot. And I'm not privy to any of the details and all that stuff. I just hope the best for him, and hopefully he's back sooner than later.
This is far from the first time you've worked with Jeff. I know that you did stuff with Global Force. I know you did stuff with Rinka King, and of course you all worked together in TNA before. Was this something that you looked at as a real opportunity? Because I know you're somewhat familiar. It's hard to say familiar with Impact considering all the changes, even the roster and stuff. But what kind of situation did you look at when you two came over from previously Global Force?
Right. I think that it kind of presented itself. I think all the pieces kind of fell in place, and the company wanting to go a different route. A new company had bought the Impact, and I think that to them it was probably a no-brainer to go with the guy to steer the ship that steered it before and successfully. So I think that this all kind of was a whirlwind for me. I was in a tough spot in my career early this year, trying to figure out where I was going to do and where I was going to go. And part of the reason that I chose this route was, my friendship with Jeff and the prospect of turning things around, basically, and starting from scratch and trying to build something different.
All right, you guys are back.
So Impact Bound for Glory happens. Son of a bitch.
Come on, man. We don't want a bunch of dead air here, buddy.
How many of these do you have?
So, truth be told...
Answer the question.
Truth be told, I was going to... I debated about purchasing them all. And there are like 6 of them. There's like a Cena, there's a Kane, there's a Mankind, there's a Roddy Piper, there's an Ultimate Warrior, plus these 2. I was going to get them all, but I decided, you know what, that's overkill. It's a waste of money for like a little gag on a podcast, so I just got these 2.
Yeah, it's not like you would spend all the money to get like a $1 million belt or cardboard cutouts or a green screen or signs of my cats.
You got to know when to draw the line somewhere, Sean.
Oh,
that's
man.
why I just went these 2.
Do you have a Slim Jim there?
Huh?
Do you have a Slim Jim?
No, I'm okay.
Oh, damn.
So let me say one thing about Sonjay Dutt.
And actually, this one's pretty sweet. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Look at that.
It doesn't look anything like him, but yeah.
I still think it's pretty sweet. I actually think it's more comfortable than the Rock mask, personally. So, Sonjay Dutt, you know what? I don't know how he is in terms of creative. I don't know how creative he is in coming up with wrestling television, but he is very intelligent, very articulate, very well spoken. I thought he answered your questions honestly. Yes. And I loved when you talked about Impact Wrestling and about, kind of the phase they're in right now. He was very honest in saying it's a rebuilding phase. We have to regain consumer confidence. He could have just fed you a line of bullshit because Jeff Jarrett would have. Yeah. And he didn't. He was very honest in saying where they're at, and I respect that. I respect that about him, man.
I'll run down the card very quickly for Impact Bound for Glory on Sunday. We have live coverage and discussion for that, and I'm doing a live post show. Team Impact, that's Eddie Edwards, EC3, and James Storm against AAA, which is a guy you all will know as King Cuerno, Pagano, and Tejano. Rosemary versus Taya Valkyrie in a red wedding match. Abyss versus Grado in a Monsters Ball match. If Grado loses, his work visa is terminated. 6 Sides of Steel, that's Lashley and King Mo against Stephan Bonner and Moose. That feud has kicked ass. It's been really good TV. Sienna, Ali, Gail Kim, 3-way match for the Knockouts Championship. OVE, not too high on them, against LAX, very high on them, but I think this match will be very good. It's a 51-50 street fight for the tag titles. Then you have that Ultimate X, or no, it's a 6-way match for the X Division Championship. Trevor Lee, Desmond Xavier, Garza Jr., Matt Sydal, Petey Williams, Sonjay Dutt for that title. That's going to be good. Main event, Eli Drake versus Johnny Impact, Global Championship match. So could be a fun card. It could be a really, really good show, or it could be an absolute train wreck, I think.
I can't wait to see what the venue looks like in Ottawa.
Apparently they sold it out, allegedly.
No way.
That's what they said.
They papered it.
That's what I've been told. Quite possibly.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I want to say one little thing quickly because I sometimes I forget that we have a lot of audio only.
We have an hour and a half. You can say it quickly or you can draw it out.
Yeah, but
you want.
I got the list of Jimmy Van here, man. I got to get to more content. But I do want to say for people that only listen to the show via audio and they don't watch the show, sometimes Sean and I both forget about that. And so I just want to kind of make it clear. I have certain Halloween masks that I put on for the show. If you're able to watch us on YouTube, you can check those out. Because otherwise it might be like, what the hell was Sean pausing mid-sentence for and saying,
I care
oh,
about
Jesus.
all of our viewers and listeners and subscribers. So.
Exactly. I want to move on.
But if you don't subscribe to our YouTube, you guys are missing out. I'm talking like we got tons of content that we only put up there, so check that out as well. You all will start to see some of my news update videos go into our articles as well.
I want to talk about WWE financials.
Let's do it.
They released their Q3 results this week. They announced revenue of $186.4 million, profit of $21.8 million. They beat Wall Street estimates on both. And it caused the stock to increase by 17% between October 25 and October 27. Went up from about $21 to about $26, which is pretty solid. Now, granted, their TV rights fees, that's a primary reason for this increase, and they're not even hiding that fact. The network did go up in profitability. It increased due to more revenue and less spending on content. They announced that network subscriptions were at 1.507 million. It was up 4% from the same period last year, down from last quarter, though, and that's been the trend year over year. And one thing I thought was interesting about the fact that the buys went down a little bit, or the subscriptions went down a little bit, as we've talked about, they've been trying out these marquee matches on B-level pay-per-views. First time ever matches, Brock Lesnar against Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns against John Cena. They were going to do the Shield reunion, and they do that trying to minimize churn outside of WrestleMania season. What these numbers showed is that it had very little effect because generating the marquee matches on the B shows, they still had a reduction in subscriptions, so that was interesting.
It wasn't that much of a reduction, but here's the question I have to ask Jimmy. They cut like all the shows. All the shows except for Storytime, Table for Three, Ride Along. The ones, well, Storytime isn't that cheap to produce because I've looked into how much it costs to hire an animator to do stuff because I've wanted to do it myself. That can be expensive. Ride Along and Table for Three, dirt cheap for them to make. They got rid of the podcast shows where they have to pay the talent to come in. They got rid of the JBL show. They got rid of Edge and Christian show. And what they found was it doesn't reduce subscriptions that much. And it's a bummer because I love those shows. They're great shows. It's great content. But they're finding that, well, our pay-per-views are selling everything.
That's the draw. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it always was the draw. And
I think they feel sorry to cut you off. I think they feel the need to keep those matches on there to let people keep thinking that that's the draw.
It could be, but I think, quite frankly, I mean, when they launched the network a couple of years ago, if I remember right, they were throwing around the figure of 3 million. And they actually thought they were going to hit 3 million subscribers worldwide. I think they're at the point now where they kind of recognize that that's very unlikely to happen. And so in order to, I guess, appease shareholders and in order to try to come off smelling like roses when they're not hitting the mark, you cut the costs and you show more profitability. And that's what they did. And again, I mean, the trend is the same over last year in terms of going down for Q3 versus Q2, but they're up versus Q3 last year. I mean, you know, what can you do?
I think building giant individual stars would help instead of trying to rely on the marquee. You know what I mean? When WWE was in the mind of, well, we're going to build some giant individual stars, you got a lot of other giant individual stars off of those. With Stone Cold and The Rock being built, Oh, okay. Well, The Undertaker's there to be a supporting cast member. Triple H emerges. Kurt Angle emerges. And then on the undercard, you have your Edges and Christians and the Hardy Boys, who later on became, in a time when business was down a little bit, they became really important people to have. Like, I think that's important. I think they got a good one with old Braun Strowman.
Yep, absolutely they do. I mean, obviously, you're talking about the 90s. That was the peak of the business.
Of course.
And I've always believed, and it's been long talked about, I've always believed that when Vince McMahon had to light a fire under his ass due to competition, that's when he was at his best. And we've heard about how for many years now the ratings don't mean as much to him. And it's because he just doesn't have that fire in his belly now. I mean, there is no competition. That's just kind of how it is. One thing I want to say is that actually there's two things. First thing is they announced, they confirmed that the deal with NBC Universal expires September 30, 2019. Their TV deals with the UK and India, which are their next two biggest money deals, expire December 31st, 2019. They're hoping that between May and September of next year, they can already announce a new US television deal. That's what they're hoping for.
I hope by next week they can announce a new India deal. That way they can stop this charade on SmackDown.
Well, kind of speaking of that, because I thought this was kind of unintentionally funny when they did the conference call and Vince McMahon was talking about international talent signings. It was clear that he is so far removed from that stuff that he couldn't even remember any names. I thought it was very interesting that Triple H was in the room on the conference call because you never hear him on the conference calls.
Yeah.
But he's probably always there.
He is always there.
Okay, so Triple H was in the room and Vince had to turn to him in order to get the names out of like Kavita Devi and all that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But it was a good quarter. It was a good quarter, but again, no one is fooled by the fact that the TV rights fees are driving their revenue. But it was still a really good quarter.
Yeah, a lot of positive news that came out of that. Not bad, not bad. I just hope they get this India deal settled because, it's getting tough. It's getting tough to watch that show.
So let's talk about the Survivor Series. I think they kind of tipped their hat as to the main event a little bit when Kurt Angle posted on social media that he was having new gear made. I think that kind of let you know what was going to be happening. So they confirmed on Raw this week that he is going to captain the men's team for Raw. Shane McMahon's going to captain the men's team for SmackDown. They haven't announced the full rosters yet, but it's expected it's going to be Kurt, Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, and Finn Balor against Shane McMahon, Randy Orton, Bobby Roode, Shinsuke Nakamura, and AJ Styles. That's a pretty solid 5-on-5 matchup. Pretty solid. I'm very interested to see the dynamic between, say, a Braun and a Roman, or even a Samoa Joe and a Roman. I think that's going to be very interesting. So I'm looking forward to that, man. I'm looking forward to seeing the Kurt Angle that we remember, not the Kurt Angle in the Shield gear working a TLC match, but like the actual Kurt Angle in the red, white, and blue singlet. I'm looking forward to seeing that, seeing how he is in that environment.
Yes, me too. You can play off of the Angle McMahon, Shane McMahon thing from
King of the Ring?
From a long time ago.
Yep.
Shane's appeared in several Survivor Series matches now. I think this will be his third or fourth. So that's good. I'm sure it'll be a good match. I want them to add some stakes, like have Kurt or Shane say, hey, if you all win, I'll give all of you title shots. Just something.
Something, right.
Some reason for these guys to care besides the color of a shirt. That's it.
Right. Maybe they can say whoever, because it's an elimination match, right? Maybe they can say whoever is not eliminated gets a title shot.
That's a great one.
That's not a bad idea.
What I brought up on the SmackDown show, remember it was 04 Survivor Series where the winners got to run Raw for a week. So like Maven ran Raw for a week because he was a part of that team. And there were a lot of sub-storylines set there. Like Maven passed up an offer to join Evolution, got beat in his title match that he booked for himself, and it helped create a heel turn because he was like, man, what did I do? I screwed up my career. Now, they never went anywhere with it. Maven never was what they wanted him to be, and he had his own personal problems. When you do something like that, it sets up not just one storyline, it opens up a plethora of storylines. It's like a chain reaction. So, and Survivor Series with stakes can be one of my favorite types of matches.
What's Maven doing now?
I don't know. I know he had a drug problem for a while. He was doing the Home Shopping Network, and he was really good at it.
I remember the Home Shopping Network. He was on BET for a while.
He was on The Surreal Life for a while, which I loved that show.
Yeah.
I thought that was fun TV. but I know that he came back and started to wrestle, and I tried to reach out to him because I was going to do one of my long forms I was going to do on former Tough Enough winners, and it didn't work out. So I don't know. I haven't heard from him in a while.
Okay, well, we talked earlier about WWE releases, so let's talk about WWE returns, because this was a hell of a week for WWE returns.
Sure was.
So Samoa Joe returned from injury on Raw. JoJo Waterman was back doing ring announcing. Bo Dallas was back with The Miz. Nia Jax was back from her hiatus. Bray Wyatt was at Raw because he left to be part of the European tour. All those guys came back. Roman Reigns is still out. He will be at the Survivor Series. And let me tell you one thing that I love about WWE is that they have an ace in the hole by the name of Triple H. And you talk about having that ace in the hole. I can't think of a better term for it. You lose a main eventer on a tour. You send Triple H out in his place. Probably a bigger draw than Roman, probably, because he doesn't wrestle very often. So Hunter is working the UK tour. Started today, actually starting today, November 1st in Glasgow, Scotland. It's going this whole week. I think it's 5 shows. And he's working the whole tour in Roman Reigns' place this week. What an asset having a proven main eventer from the Attitude Era that you can just rely on whenever you need. It's pretty solid.
The guy named Kurt Angle that's going to be able to help him with that stuff too in the future.
Yeah, and I think he's doing at least one of the shows in a non-wrestling role, I think.
That's a very, very great thing to have. Like you said, an ace in the hole.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Absolutely.
That's really good. When you bring over a guy like AJ Styles, who has a proven track record of being able to put asses in seats around the world, that helps solidify these rosters and stuff. But when a guy like Roman Reigns falls out, well, if you take AJ Styles off of a house show loop, that's going to hurt. So you got to have a Triple H. I mean, ideally, it's a bummer Booker T had to have surgery to the extent that he had, because you could have him help with that stuff, or just have him talk into a microphone for a little while based on his Raw commentary. But they don't have the ones like they used to. A lot of those Attitude Era guys are just not up and going anymore, like I mentioned, Booker T. But Triple H is. Yep. He's taken care of. Kurt Angle has proven to them that he can work and he can do it, and that's a great move. Other than that, there aren't a ton. JBL can't like slide into that spot. He's too far removed.
He's not a draw anyway.
Maybe if you have a Rey Mysterio or something, he would be the kind of guy that I think they could like almost like keep on a retainer type of thing. Like, I'm surprised they haven't ever brought in Rob Van Dam for some of this stuff. Like, they do have a deal with him where it's like, hey, just don't work for any national companies. You're 234 years old, but we don't want you working for anybody else.
Yeah.
Call up RVD. Send him over to Europe. Why not?
Ray, I think, would be pretty expensive for that.
Oh, he would be.
But who knows? Speaking of names from the past, so the Raw 25th anniversary show is going to be on January 22nd, 2018. Can you believe 25 years, Sean? 25 years.
Man.
Makes me feel old, man.
Me too.
Now, what's interesting about it is Raw is going to emanate from 2 venues that night, Barclays Center in Brooklyn and the Manhattan Center in New York, which is where the first Raw took place, at the Manhattan Center. And they've announced that The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and Kevin Nash are going to be there. So that should be a fun show. And I'm sure they're going to announce more names as time goes along. So
yes,
that'll be fun.
I like it, and I think it's a good idea. I think that the Manhattan Center, bring it from there, cool. I love that. I wish they would run like live events, which I mean, you can't run a live event there because you're gonna fill up MSG, so you can't do it there. But I wish they would go to some more like small, iconic arenas and stuff like that, like NXT does.
I was gonna
NXT
say,
does a really good job.
That's what NXT does. Yeah.
Now I'll ask you this: what's your favorite match in Raw history?
Man, I'd have to actually. I can name it. The Rock versus Mankind, the tape match. I think it was December '98 when Stone Cold did the run-in.
Oh yeah.
Still, I think the biggest pop in wrestling history that I can think of when Stone Cold's music hit. Biggest. I can
just think about that. In the middle of a match, his music hits and and hits a guy with a chair, and the ref's just like, meh.
Well, no, it was no DQ.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, because the DX was fighting outside with the corporation.
Oh, yeah.
There's no DQ. And that was the match when Tony Schiavone was told by Bischoff to make fun of Foley.
Of course.
And to this day, you can go back and watch that on YouTube. And that pop, when Stone Cold's music hit, nothing has rivaled it. That pop. And that's one of those segments I can go back and watch that 1,000 times and not be sick of it. So that's probably my favorite of all time.
I'd say mine was maybe a little underrated of one. Shawn Michaels and John Cena when they went like 50, 55 minutes on Raw, and I didn't see it coming. Like they just went up at the 10 o'clock hour, and I was like, wow, they're starting this one early, and they went the full hour, and I was like, whoa. And this is John Cena's, like, he's the man in 07. Like, nobody's going to beat him, and Shawn Michaels beat him. That was so cool. Another underrated one, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, I think it was the last Raw of 03 that really, like, kicked off their feud again. That was another good one. Shawn Michaels, just, I think if I were to make, like, my list of top 10 favorite Raw matches, Shawn Michaels might be on, like, 5 or 6 of them.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even him and Jannetty from, like, 93, 94.
Him and Jannetty, him and Shelton
sure.
Benjamin. I loved that one.
Right.
That one was unbelievable.
The super
that
kick
one,
off the slingshot, yeah.
That made me think that Shelton was going to be, like, one of their big super worker guys, and he was a super worker. Every top guy he worked with, I thought he got, if I were to rate it on my rating system, they're getting like 7s and 8s and stuff, and that's pretty good. I thought that was really good. But yeah, lots of great stuff over 25 years.
For sure.
Even though sometimes as we watch it, those 3 hours don't go along so smoothly.
No, sometimes they turn you into a stupid person, just like the Stupid People segment. Go ahead, Nigel.
All right.
This is a stupid song, it just goes on and on. You might find some meaning, but you would be wrong.
So first off, I got a message last week saying, why do you keep on mentioning Trevor Strong and trevorstrong.org? Why don't you just put his name on the graphic? The answer is not everybody watches the video. Some people listen to the show and don't watch the video. Therefore, I have to mention it. Otherwise, they're not going to see the credit. So Trevor Strong, trevorstrong.org. Thanks for the usage of the song. That's why I have to say it, Sean. So there you go. Now this week, Sean, the theme this week is stupid things people do because they're very easily manipulated. All right? Nigel,
Is this sponsored by Trig Tent?
I was
Because
going
get
to
the feeling.
say, Nigel being the Trig Tent guy, he will back this up. People in 2017, probably more so than ever in the history of the universe, are very easily manipulated. And that's where these stories came from. And the third one, I'm going to throw a quiz in there for you, Sean, on the third one. All right?
Okay.
Because I think that's going to be your favorite one. So this first one has to do with religion. And I'm not going to turn this into a religious thing. I'm just going to read the stupid story, but it has to do with religion. People are very manipulated when it comes to religion sometimes. It was reported by the Daily Mail on October 25th that a 68-year-old self-professed magic man named Lim Ba died after steaming himself in a wok while trying to, quote, cleanse body and soul at a Chinese temple in northern Malaysia.
Huh?
He sat on a giant metal pan. He had a metal lid placed over him, clasped his hands in prayer, and then they lit a fire under the wok.
Playboy fried himself?
Well, not a fry, that's a steam, right?
Whatever.
Within 30 minutes, he was knocking frantically from the inside. They raised the lid to find him unconscious. He was pronounced dead at the scene, second-degree burns, and he suffered a heart attack because he was steaming in a wok.
What makes you think that's a good idea?
That's why it's under the stupid people section, Sean.
Just use a sauna. Like, what was he trying to do?
Apparently, it was a ritual to cleanse body and soul.
Stupid.
Well, yeah, that's why he's in this segment.
It's a ritual to get you dead as fuck is what it is.
And he did it in front of hundreds of followers in a temple.
Of course.
Yep.
And they let it happen?
They let it happen. They're just watching. There's video of this.
So more people do this.
I don't know, but there is video. If you go to the Daily Mail and look it up, I saw the video. It's there.
So, like, people were just, like, they probably filmed it vertically, too. Savages. Savages.
So the second one, Sean, I don't want to turn this into a religious podcast, Sean. I don't, but sometimes I don't understand organized religion sometimes. This next one was reported by the Detroit Free Press on October 24th. There is a religious practice among some Indian Muslims, okay, in which young girls are subjected to genital mutilation without anesthetic, all right? And it's supposed to be a rite of passage, kind of similar to bar mitzvahs for Jewish boys, right? It's supposed to be a rite of passage. The typical age is 7 years old for these girls, all right? Check out this story. According to the Free Press, a woman in Oakland County, Michigan, was charged with subjecting her daughter to this practice.
No.
She was ordered to serve house arrest, and she had an electronic monitor placed on her ankle, right?
House arrest?
Yep. Because she didn't do it to intentionally inflict injury. She did it because it's a religious practice she believes in, right? So
I don't care.
Well, but here's the best part. The woman is now requesting that the electronic bracelet on her ankle be removed because it's causing skin irritation.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Can you believe that, Nigel?
Now.
That is ridiculous.
Isn't that ridiculous?
We talked some weenie cutting on the show before. But
Yes.
leave the labias and flabias and flip-flaps all alone. Stop.
Flip-flops.
Now,
Stop it.
It should be added that the practice is illegal in the United States. This
It should
genital
be.
mutilation is legal. But I couldn't help but I had to add the story when the woman is complaining of skin irritation from an electronic bracelet on her ankle.
Well, that's not
after
lost
doing that.
on me. I'm just,
Yeah, I
how
know.
is it still a practice?
I know. Last one, Sean. I asked my business partner, Luke, if he knows what a Yoni is, and he did, and I was very impressed. Do you know what a Yoni is, Sean?
No.
Neither. Do you know what a Yoni is?
Can't say that I do.
I didn't either, but he knew. So Yoni is a Sanskrit word for female genitalia.
Of course, Luke would know that.
Of course Luke would know that. Yeah. So that's what Yoni is. It is a Sanskrit word for female genitalia, all right? Now, this was reported by IFL Science on October 18th. There is an emerging trend, Sean, in the U.S. called the Yoni Cucumber Cleanse.
Oh, boy.
Now, according to this trend, women are inserting peeled cucumbers into their vagina, twisting them around, pulling them in and out, doing in and out movements.
Oh, yeah, cleanse, huh?
Yes, and they claim that it cleanses the vagina, it resets the pH balance, and it leaves you smelling fresh. All right? If you go on Google, and I know because I did this, if you go on Google and if you Google Yoni Cucumber Cleanse, there's a bunch of YouTube videos, there's a bunch of articles with all of these holistic-minded people that are vouching for this, right? Do you know who Dr. Jen Gunter is?
No, I don't. I can't say that I do or ever will.
Do you know what Goop is?
Goop?
Yeah.
Let's just continue with the explanation.
Okay. Goop is Gwyneth Paltrow's website.
Okay.
Okay, you're not familiar with Goop? Okay, Nigel, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so Goop is a website owned by Gwyneth Paltrow. I think now she's now getting brick and mortar stores and stuff, and she basically sells, I guess you could call it holistic stuff, health and wellness stuff. A lot of it is bullshit, right? And Dr. Jen Gunter became somewhat famous for debunking a lot of the claims on Goop and calling bullshit on them, right? So this Dr. Jen Gunter
Can't have that Goop misinformation out there.
Exactly. It's a big mistake, right? This Dr. Jen Gunter wrote a blog about the Yoni Cucumber Cleanse. And she basically said, okay, number one, the vagina is not dirty, and you don't need to cleanse it with a cucumber. That's number one. She said, number two, there is fungus on the cucumber that could create infection. And number three, there have been cases of perforated bladders due to performing this thing with the peeled cucumber. So she basically said, don't do it. Don't be stupid. Don't do it.
So I'll try to approach this as I can. You know, sometimes I'll slice up a cucumber. I'll drop them in some water.
Are they going to say just stick it up your ass?
Yeah, sometimes. Hey, man, it gets smelly up there, right? That's just working on the pH balances.
Yeah, exactly.
Drop it in my water, drink it. It accents the water in a wonderful way.
Have you seen the other guys?
That's where I got the
Okay,
idea.
that's where. Okay.
That's where I got the idea.
All right.
And Will Ferrell, it seems like he oversold it. He didn't sell it enough.
That was
Now,
great. Yeah.
I am only an amateur gynecologist. I am far from professional. But you know what fixes the pH balance? Eating the fucking cucumber. Eating good foods. Eating healthy foods. That's lazy. That's like, you know, the ab things that you buy that go around your back and it's got a fucking battery in it that does this.
I gotta say, anybody that's only listening to this and not watching the video, you're missing out this week. All right? just based on the movements we just saw to Sean. Have you ever seen the shake weight, Sean?
Of course I have. There was
Okay.
a South Park episode. Well, there's a South Park episode about everything.
Right. Yeah. There you go, man. Let's move on and talk about Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, let's.
She, boy, what a segue from from the Yoni Cucumber Cleanse to Ronda Rousey. So she was working out, I think it was last week at the Performance Center in Orlando with Shayna Baszler. And the plan right now is the MMA horsewomen versus the WWE horsewomen at WrestleMania 34.
Tentative plan.
Tentative
Still
plan.
waiting.
How do you think that's going to go if that happens?
Well, I think it'll be all right. I think that they're in the right place. I know that Jessamine Duke has also relocated to Florida. Rousey was there for a while and then went back to California, so I don't know if she's there right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Shayna, we know she'll be fine. Marina is married to Roderick Strong. I'm sure that he will make sure that she's fine because, that whether anybody believes it or not, that might reflect on him. Jessamine has been training with Shayna for years, so, whenever Shayna wants to do something, like her main training partner is Jessamine Duke, I'm sure she'll be all right. Ronda Rousey is the wild card, and I think that that's the attraction.
Mm-hmm. Of course,
I
absolutely.
think that she can do a lot of cool things with her judo training that pro wrestling fans haven't seen before. There are a lot of trips, takedowns, submissions that we haven't seen out there. I think they'll all be protected very well, and they won't have to be in the ring long enough to get too exposed.
Do you think that they will put over the WWE talent at the expense of Ronda Rousey?
Yeah, if it's a WrestleMania, yeah, because they always have. Outside of the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2, no celebrity or athlete has ever lost a WrestleMania match.
Yeah, but I get that. But do you think they're going to be doing like clean submission wins, armbar? Because it might be elimination, let's say. Do you think they're going to have all these girls tap out to the armbar, probably leaving Charlotte in that scenario?
I think it'd be good if they did have Ronda Rousey tap out like 3 girls if it's elimination,
right,
and then have Charlotte beat her.
Right.
Because there's money in a Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey one-on-one match.
Absolutely, for sure. Absolutely. And Charlotte's the only one that could pull it off, I think.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah.
Charlotte had that star quality in NXT. I thought she should be NXT and WWE's Ronda Rousey before she lost to Sasha Banks.
She has been so poorly utilized since she went to SmackDown. It's a shame because on Raw, she was one of the stars of the show, male or female, before the move.
There's a lot of people that when they do the offspring of a legend gimmick, it doesn't work. And she does a female version of Ric Flair, and goddamn is she good at it.
She is, but she's her own person too.
Yeah.
She's not out there strutting and everything. Like, she does a lot of her own shit. Granted, she's got similar music. She does the woo, which I wish she wouldn't do. But but she does a lot of her own shit too. So I really like Charlotte. Conor McGregor. So you and I looked at a video today. I assume you saw the video, right? The interview?
Yeah, I did a news update on it.
Okay, so he has a documentary coming out called Notorious. We were sent a clip of the video from entertainment.ie. He was interviewed by them as part of the press junket for the documentary. And I thought it was very interesting that he put The Rock over. And it's funny when you see Conor McGregor in that environment where he doesn't have a live audience there. He's not selling tickets for a pay-per-view or anything like that. He's actually a very chill, calm, respectful guy in that environment. And he actually said, and this is a quote, he said, "It's breathtaking that stars like The Rock know who he is and show him support," which I thought was pretty respectful. My question was, there's long been rumors about McGregor and WWE, and there's long been talk about WrestleMania. I don't think it makes sense if they're already going to bring Ronda Rousey in. I don't think it makes sense to have McGregor do WrestleMania as well. So what do you think about that?
I think eventually there will be an appearance, but it won't be soon.
Right.
But he will eventually.
Right.
He gets the deal. He keeps his options open. He's got options in boxing. He's got options in MMA. He can do whatever he wants.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like Tony Ferguson might be next. That's the rumor.
Yeah. I did that news update today. You all can check that out where Conor McGregor runs down his options. And it's weird to say it, man, but him just mentioning somebody's name, showing that he knows somebody's name is a rub. He mentioned Justin Gaethje by name, even though he butchered the name. He showed that he knew who he was and that he was interested in that fight and said, this guy fights the way that I like to fight. So keep your eye on that. He said that Nate Diaz is a money fight. He said that he'd like to fight Paulie Malignaggi in MMA. He said that there are boxing fights, but it looks like Tony Ferguson is the guy. I've got more in that video news update on our YouTube page. Head over and subscribe. But he said that he's in contract negotiations, so good.
Yeah, I don't think Malignaggi is going to be a draw. I don't think that's going to happen. But
I think they would. I think it would do about $1 million, about like his MMA fights.
I was going to say what all of his fights do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Eric Bischoff. I got to say this, man. So I'm not going to use the word fan. I've had a lot of respect for Eric Bischoff, probably from the time that he first went to WWE in like 2002 or whenever that was. And the reason that I have a lot of respect for Eric Bischoff is because he hasn't really sugarcoated anything. When he's asked about his time at WCW, he's pretty straightforward. He'll knock himself. He'll knock his decisions. He'll say that he had an ego then, and he'll say that he was arrogant. And he's pretty straight up, I think, when he talks about that time. And he took a lot of shit in WWE too, and I thought handled it like a pro. So I have a lot of respect for Eric Bischoff. Had to question his answer to a question though, when he was on the Sam Roberts podcast, Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. He was on there because Bret Hart had been on the Sam Roberts show, and Bret Hart said a lot of negative things about Eric Bischoff. I think he called him a maggot. So Eric Bischoff was brought on by Sam Roberts to kind of retort what Bret Hart said, and he did, and that's not what this is about. Sam Roberts said to Eric Bischoff, if you were going to build a wrestling company today, what talent from WWE would you want to grab and build your company around? And Eric Bischoff gave two answers. The first answer, I think everybody universally would be in agreement, right? Braun Strowman. We saw him finally turn babyface on Raw, even though his emergence from the garbage truck was stupid, but we still saw his emergence as a babyface.
It was hilarious. It was great.
But he's I mean, the crowd's with him, and one thing, I don't want to segue too much from my Bischoff story, but what I love about Braun Strowman, among all the things about him, is I've talked before about how much I love when the wrestler listens to the crowd. Right?
Yes.
And a guy like Kevin Owens listens to the crowd, and Sami Zayn has shown that he listens to the crowd. Braun Strowman power slammed Curtis Axel 4 times because whenever he did it, the crowd said one more. So then he'd pick him up and do it again. And I was watching that going, that is a skill that it seems like a pretty easy, obvious skill to have when you're in a...
It's elementary. WWE doesn't want him to do it, though.
It's great that he does it. It's great that he pays attention.
They asked for tables, and he threw a guy through a table.
It's great. It's great.
It was awesome.
And I hope he doesn't lose that skill, because that is a skill not enough guys have when you're able to listen to the crowd
he's going to be out there saying, I do it for each and every one of you. WWE Universe.
Oh, he better not. He better not. He's got to be who he is, because right now he's awesome. But anyway.
Then he fights from underneath.
Oh, no.
While Luke Gallows works him over with a pumpkin on his head. That's what's coming up next.
Oh, no. So Bischoff said Braun Strowman is one of 2 guys he'd build around. Right? Justified, right? The second name, he said, is Dolph Ziggler. What the hell, man? Bischoff built a multi-million-dollar company, WCW, grabbing Hulk Hogan and grabbing Randy Savage and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and all these guys, and now he's picking Dolph Ziggler as a cornerstone of a new company. And this is a quote from Eric Bischoff. He said, regarding Dolph Ziggler, he's versatile, he's athletic, he has a great look. He reminds me of Kurt Angle because although he doesn't have that badass killer persona that Kurt had, he's capable of it because he's an amazing amateur wrestler. He can choose to be a badass or he can be a comedic character. I don't know. Sometimes how I like to throw around the term, I don't see money in him. And Baron Corbin, to this day, I don't see money in Baron Corbin. That's always the guy that I use as my example. I never saw money in Dolph Ziggler as a top guy. I never did. And part of it could be because of the name, because Dolph Ziggler is just a terrible name.
Yeah.
Part of it for me was the stringy bleach blonde hair. I just didn't think it was a good look for a main eventer. And part of it, and this is not his fault, but his voice was never a commanding, still Stone Cold Steve Austin rock kind of voice. You know what I mean? Like I never saw money in Dolph Ziggler.
I definitely didn't as a tip top guy, but during that crazy just when he was getting those reactions and he cashed in Money in the Bank, I thought that was a good time, and I thought they should have done a real good long Big E versus Dolph Ziggler feud and created a big star out of Big E off of that too.
Okay, whoa. Let's segue for a minute. Okay.
Yeah,
you really seem to have a thing for Big E because you've talked about Big E.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
There's no main event singles capability or potential in Big E. There's none.
Well, you're wrong.
No, I'm not.
That's objectively true.
I'm absolutely
But
right.
there was a main event run for a guy by the name of Jack Swagger, albeit short. I spoke to him about his possibility of competing in MMA and many other things. Here you go,
That was
guys.
actually really good, man. That was a good one.
know. The getting you to the dance thing is always something that interested me because you had a bit of a different path than a lot of people. You were recruited by WWE.
Yes.
How was that process, and what were your feelings on that as it happened? I know that some amateur wrestlers, like a Kurt Angle, he really had no interest in it. So what were your feelings when they approached you?
I think like if you were an amateur wrestler in my generation, a lot of amateur wrestlers look at pro wrestling with a certain stigma. At least we did when we were kids. And, you know, a lot of that has definitely changed now. Combat sports is more popular than ever. Pro wrestling is more popular than ever now. And so a lot of the stigmas are removed that were previously associated with it. I was very excited for it because I knew, one, it was going to get me out of Oklahoma ASAP. And so I wanted that. But two, I understood like how big the company was, and I knew enough about it where I was a fan in junior high. And so I kind of understood a little bit about it. At least I thought anyways, until I started. So I was very excited, and it was a very big opportunity.
Now, as you mentioned, combat sports has never been more popular, and that was really ramping up around the time that you made that transition. I know it was right after The Ultimate Fighter. It became an avenue, and today, even more so, you see like Ed Ruth with Bellator. You see a lot of the Aaron Pico got signed, and they really push these guys heavily. When you left WWE, that was one of the big rumors, is that maybe it's an MMA transition. And I know that you said in a recent interview that'd be kind of a risk. Have MMA companies reached out to you?
Yeah. And as of now, nothing is confirmed. But I am definitely training full on as if I were signed to one of the companies. I'm taking it very seriously because it is something very serious, and just kind of been keeping it close to the vest until there's something to announce.
So what you're telling me is Bellator has made you an offer.
What?
If Bellator hasn't pitched the idea of Alberto Del Rio versus Jack Swagger in an MMA fight, I don't even know what they're doing with their business model. It's too easy.
Well, that's a good question. Do you think Alberto has already had the MMA background, but
he's got a lot of experience.
Right. Do you think two pro wrestlers crossing over to the MMA world, do you think that would be a draw, or would you rather see them go up against an MMA guy?
People watched Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000. One of those guys technically died in the cage, and he's still alive today. I think people will watch anything.
Yeah, well, exactly. Kimbo had that momentum. He had the name. He had that X factor about him. You know, you'd want to tune in to see that. I don't know. I think two pro wrestlers going in there, it'd be better if they fought real fighters or like true MMA guys.
So do you follow MMA, or is it just something that you're considering making that transition to?
I follow it as much as I can with two kids, and something that I want to transition into.
So as I mentioned, the recruiting process, like who contacts you? And what kind of pitch do they make to you? Are they saying, well, you know, you will have to go to this developmental territory, which I would imagine going from Oklahoma to, what was it, Deep South, or was it FCW?
I was fortunate enough to go to all three. So I started in Deep South in July of 2006, moved to OVW January of 2007, and then moved to FCW July of 2007. So, and by a year and a half span, I hit all three and got all different great coaches. And one was strictly practice. OVW was all shows. And then FCW was a nice combination of both with unbelievable coaching staff. The pitch, it was your typical pitch, two big boobed women in a hotel room for me. I had to pull the string to see what they were promoting. I'm kidding.
All right, you guys are back.
Great stuff out of Jack Swagger. I've got a lot more from him. Supposed to talk to Hangman Page of Bullet Club tomorrow.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. One thing Swagger said that I relate to, he said, I only follow as much as, having two little kids will allow. Mm-hmm. And, I'm a big Edmonton Oilers fan, and granted, this season has not gone well for them so far. But because of my schedule with my two kids, I think they've played 9 or 10 games so far this year. I've only seen, like, one full game so far this year.
It got to that point with me with like baseball and stuff too. I could never watch Reds games anymore. But now, like it really depends on the groove you're in from a work perspective. I do a lot of my work at night, so I'm catching like a ton of NBA games these days. Like anytime NBA is on at night and it's a nationally broadcast game, I find myself watching that. But
I was going to ask, so what's your excuse for not watching the whole game? Is it because of your 6 cats? Because you don't have kids. So like, what's your excuse?
I mean, I work, Jimmy. You'd be shocked to learn.
Let me tell you something, man. Let me tell you something. So this weekend, we're putting the clocks back, right?
Oh, God, yeah, we are.
And most individuals, when they find out that they get that extra hour of sleep, most individuals are like, excited, right? Mm-hmm. In my world, putting the clocks back is horrible.
I hate it.
Because it means that my daughter's going to wake me up at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning, which means that when I open the curtains, it's going to be nighttime, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And that's what I have to look forward to on Sunday. That's how it is when you got 2 little kids.
I hate less daylight. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Why do we do that?
There's been a lot of calls to eliminate it. Like there's been.
I wish they would.
Yeah.
I hate doing me and Joe would do the podcast at like we used to do it at like 5 p.m. or something like back in the day.
Yeah.
And at the time of the year, like we would start and it'd be daylight and then dark. Me and Shane did a few shows like that too, where it'll be completely dark in my office because I rely on some natural light. Yeah. So my Columbus Blue Jackets are doing nice though.
They're doing all right. The Oilers are not, but it's early. It's early. We'll see how they're doing after 25 games.
Oh, what'd you do, Jimmy? Sirens.
I don't know. Maybe I pissed off an Oilers fan back there somewhere. Yeah. So the last topic on my list this week has to do with The Miz.
Sure.
And you know what? In recent weeks, I've put The Miz over for his promo work. In the past, I've talked about how The Miz just is not intimidating because he's not. I've made jokes about how I would fight him tomorrow if I had to, and I would because he's just not an intimidating guy. But I'm going to put him over today for the cell phone video that he did on social media directed at Baron Corbin. And the reason I liked it is because of something he said with respect to his spot that I really liked. And this is a quote. He said, "This isn't about Raw and SmackDown supremacy for me. This is about making the Intercontinental Championship the most prestigious and honorable title in all of WWE. I bust my ass day in and day out to make that title relevant." And the reason I love that quote is because he's found his ideal spot. And it's almost like he has accepted the fact that The Miz should not be WWE Champion. He shouldn't be. The Miz should not be in the main events and he should not be headlining shows. But as the Intercontinental Champion, he's the perfect guy for that. Because he is an excellent talker, great at improvising, and he's very quick-witted, and he's decent in the ring. And for the Intercontinental title, I think he's the perfect fit. Like I said, he should not be WWE Champion. That video showed me that he recognizes that, and he's embraced it. So I wanted to put him over for that.
And he already has been, so you can always say former WWE Champion. You don't have to go back there.
I know.
If he were to really heal it up and get up there, I wouldn't be opposed to a small run, but if I were to make an MVP voting list and I had to give first, second, third place votes of this year, Braun Strowman 1, Miz 2, Kevin Owens 3 probably for me. I think he has been so good. That entire show of Raw was written around him. The whole show.
Yep.
He showed up right after the first segment. He wrestled midway through the show and was a part of the very last. And they had like 4 or 5 in between there. He's so good. Man, the transformation and the way that his career, he went from headlining WrestleMania as WWE Champion to not being able to be on TV because they fumbled a babyface run with him so badly. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't motivated, and he got real bad in the ring. And instead of just resting on his laurels and going and doing autograph signings outside of WWE, he worked really, really hard. He got good again, and he became not just relevant, like mandatory, must-see, to use a pun. Really good stuff out of The Miz. Couldn't be happier.
I feel like WWE recognized he needs somebody to play off of. Yeah. And I think that Maurice was really the catalyst for his resurgence, because he was going nowhere until they brought Maurice in. And Miz and Maurice, I thought that they were the top act for a while on television. And I don't know when WWE found out about her pregnancy, but I'm going to go ahead and guess they found out before she announced it, at least to management, because they brought the Miztourage in.
Yes.
And it's almost like they were prepared. Okay, Maurice is going to be going off for a while. Miz needs somebody to play off of. Let's give him Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas. And it works, you know? And so
the thing I like about The Miz is his character is that he is this egomaniac. And you can play it off in that when somebody like Baron Corbin punches him in his ego, he cares enough about it and he's crazy enough to become a threat at that point. Like, now he's really, really, like, pissed off and wants to prove to everybody he's not some chump. So you don't know what he's capable of. Like, so that's really cool, and he can play that off really well. The Miz has been really great. Like, he's so good, and he's going to go down as one of the greatest Intercontinental champions ever.
Yep, he should. And it's hard when you think about Randy Savage, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Miz. But he has been very good in that role, and he's been very good for the title. And he made reference in that video to I'm elevating the IC title, whereas they're using the United States title to elevate the talent. And that's kind of true, because with the exception of AJ Styles, and I guess with the exception of Kevin Owens, Baron Corbin was going nowhere.
Well, they have given a lot of love to the United States title over the past several years. It had become like a priority. Well, or not necessarily a priority. Do you remember how like WCW used to use the U.S. Championship for a while? If a guy was a big name but didn't have a main event program, here's the U.S. title. Like Bret Hart would hold it, and all these people. That sort of started to be like what they did with it in WWE, because
Cena.
You look back. A few years ago, it kind of started with Ambrose, who was a part of the Shield. Like, he was they were a big attraction. Then it went to Sheamus. Then it went to Rusev, who was a guy they at that time had pegged for big things. Cena, Rollins, Del Rio, and then this year it went back from Reigns to Jericho to Owens, AJ Styles, and then it's back to Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin doesn't quite fire off in that same way.
Baron Corbin sucks.
Who blocked me on Twitter, by the way.
I saw that. Yeah.
And I think it's because I pointed out that you know how I always point out that he re-asks the questions that are asked to him. He cut off Renee Young one time, and then he asked the question that he thought she was going to ask him. Then he re-asked that to himself too. And I think he saw that, because I'm not the type of douchebag that tags wrestlers in my tweets. Like if I'm like, oh, I don't like this, I'm not doing that. If I did a story on them or I did an interview with them, yes, I'll tag them, because I want them to see it. I want them to get it out there. But yeah, man.
I mean, I know that the Miz video is it's all a work and they're just building up their match, but he did refer to Baron Corbin as a generic big man that will be gone in 2 years. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, there you go.
Because that's kind of sort of what he is. But that's all I got for my list this week, man.
It's a good time. We got UFC 217 coming up on Saturday.
That's going to be great. On Friday. I'm looking forward to that one.
Live discussion. Myself and Joe have a live podcast after. I will be live right after Bound for Glory, too. I'm doing it. I wasn't told to do it, but I was like, you know what? I should probably cover this show.
You'll have a solid 12 viewers for that one.
Yeah.
All right. So
actually, I'll have more than that.
So it's not wrestling, but good Canadian boy. GSP Michael Bisping. What do you think?
That's going to be a tough one. GSP hasn't fought in 4 years. He's never fought at this weight. Michael Bisping is a giant
in comparison
at that division. There are a lot of question marks. There are a lot of things that I think that GSP can capitalize on, but it's a matter of wondering if Bisping has cleared up those holes. I broke it down from a stylistic standpoint on the Holy Smokes MMA podcast. Go check that out, guys. It is on our YouTube. It is on FightfulPods.com. But we've got coverage all week. And, of course, my sister-in-law is getting married this weekend. So
Oh, there you go.
that's going to be fun. But I'm actually about to take a quick trip to Lexington, come back, and then, boy, I am locked into this chair all week.
There you go.
Son of a bitch, what are you doing?
I just want to make sure they get some quality airtime.
Yeah, I think they got enough already.
Think so? I'm going to leave them here, and I might put them on the mannequins there back there for a little while. We'll see.
All right. Guys, until next time, follow him at JimmyVan74. Follow me at Sean Ross Sapp. Follow us at Fightful Online, Fightful MMA, Fightful Wrestle, and visit Fightful.com. We got everything there. Every day you go to Fightful.com, you will see something that you will not get at any other news site. We have an exclusive every day. Check it out. Until next time, we're out. That is respect for the dead. Jesus Christ.